Here.
Commissioner Plum,
Here.
Mr. Vanderveer,
Here.
Mr. Willis, Chairman Barber,
Here. We have a quorum, and the first order of business is approval of minutes from the last meeting. Anyone care to make a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from March 17th.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Matter passes 5-4. Madam Recorder, are there any individuals signed up to speak?
yes, sir.
All right. Would it be appropriate to hear them now? Or,
I guess if you want, that you can go with the time of the agenda item or.
are they all for the,
There's two for signs and the other three are for the Lake Forest development.
okay, we'll take them in their turn. For those of you who signed up, what we'll do is we'll hear from the city planning director first, the applicant second, and then I'll recognize each individual who would like to speak. When it's your turn, when you're called, please identify yourself, give us your name and your address, and then speak to us, not to the applicant, please. Having said that, we have Mr. Skian up for business number 5, reports of officers and committees.
Okay, once again, I want to give an update. Tom Skeen, Planning Director. We have a number of items that are in various process of completion. You've got the memo in front of you. Arcadia and Equestria have been deferred. They may or may not come in next month. We've also have 2 administrative approvals. Crystal's Restaurant asked for a slight variation on the brick color. They went from a more reddish brick to a little browner in tone. And that was administratively approved by me. We also have a administrative approval to amend the landscaping plan at the middle school. And it still meets all the requirements that are applicable, so I did grant that administrative approval to change the landscaping plan. So, other than that, the Board of Commissioners did approve the special permit for the Lake District and the Estates of Chapel, the Chambers Chapel. So their next step will be to submit an outline plan. The Lake District did submit an outline plan that we will be reviewing next month. The last item here is just in terms of building permits, to give you an idea of where we stand in terms of residential and commercial development. Again, I reminded this is new construction. We're on par with last year's residential development, and we've doubled last year's commercial development. You can lie with statistics. We went from 1 to 2. Yeah.
It's not a lie, it's just it doesn't, the rate doesn't indicate absolute growth.
Exactly. So, anyway, but that's what you put on a resume, that you doubled commercial development, you know, so. Anyway, that's the conclusion of the staff memo. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Regarding Exxon, obviously that road is progressing very well. I'm assuming that they're going to have to do something soon.
Yes, in fact, Emily was just telling me that they've secured a building permit, and she's going to schedule a pre-construction meeting with them and coordinate that construction for the facade improvements as well as the reconfiguration of the site plan.
Mr. Pilcher.
I had to leave the VOC meeting last Thursday before the choke rezoning was voted on. How'd that go?
They did pass it on first reading. The vote was 3-2
In favor of rezoning?
in favor of rezoning. Yes, sir.
Right.
business number 2.
Action on recommendation to the BOC on a request of a time extension for Lake Forest planned mixed-use development.
Is there a motion?
I move that we bring this to the floor.
Second.
Second? Motion's been made and seconded, properly introduced.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant's here. Would you like me to address the?
I would like you to
commission
speak first, and then
Okay.
the applicant, and then the public.
And then, okay. What you have before you is an extension. They're making 4 requests, 2 of which are planning commission items. One is to extend the PDP or the preliminary development plan. Another is an extension of the SDDP, the secondary detailed development plan. The other items involve the development agreement for the contract and also the Board of Sewerage report that will go before the DOC. This is an approved plan. They are asking for an extension of 6 years. There are a number of moving parts to this request. The Planning Commission, I think, should take into consideration 4 things. 3 work in favor of the developer and 1 in favor of the city. And that is the size of the development is quite substantial. The mixed-use approach that they're taking should be taken into consideration in terms of time needed. And they've already started construction. They've done some installation of infrastructure already to the site. From the city's perspective, we do have sewer capacity concerns, not so much with this development, but what may happen in the future. And we need to be cognizant of what we're committing to on paper versus viable projects that come forward this far on. With that, staff is recommending that we keep with tradition and grant no more than 3-year extension. Extensions have been asked in the past, and this body has granted 3-year extensions, and that is my recommendation.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Mr. Cook?
I attended the meeting that they held at Stonebridge by the Gillette development people who
Yes, sir.
have entered into a contract with Feld apparently about this. And they claim that they're going to build the whole thing before they stop. In other words, they're not going to do it in phases, they're going to do it all at one time.
The proposed development, yes, sir.
If that went ahead as they have talked about it, could it be done in that 3-year period of time? Because they're not going to start for a year, or does that not matter?
This request has nothing to do with the Lake District. This is.
I understand, but it's,
I can't speak for Gilead Development Corporation.
okay.
But it is my understanding that they are going to build everything at once. And I would think 3 years would be ample time, but again, I don't know their timeline.
Thank you.
May I try to be a little more direct? My understanding of what you just said is that the Lake District proposal is inclusive of this property, but it does not do this PD.
Correct.
And so it's the same property, it's not the same development, therefore they're 2 separate topics.
It's the same in scope, but different in specifics and details, yes, sir.
And so they're kind of an overlap, and it's which one comes first is the way it's going to actually sort out. Sorry, but I mean,
No,
I think
you're right.
I sense a little curiosity.
Mr. Skinner, about the force main, has anything been done regarding the anticipation of this property with what's going on with the road construction and other construction that's happening currently at the interchange?
I will defer to Emily Carroll, our city engineer, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Regarding the capacities for the force main, just my curiosity for the, the magnitude of this development and its capacities. Has anything been done to anticipate with the road construction that's currently going on?
Yeah, we have recently gotten a sewer master plan. A2A conducted that for us, and it referenced that there's capacity in the force main, but that the pump station would have to be upsized. So we don't really have a concern as far as the capacity for this side of the development. They will have to make some improvements to the existing lift station, the pump station, to get it, to get the amount of flow over the interstate. But there is capacity there in the line. Does that answer?
Yeah, just, looking out, there's 100 acres across the interstate as well. And all of that flows through that bridge that's just slightly north of this interchange. And I just was curious about those anticipated capacities and how that was going to work.
Yeah, are you talking about the 100 acres that's on the north side of the interstate?
Yes,
That will probably be gravity. We can probably flow that gravity.
I think that's force main in the front of that right now. But
On the front end?
I'm not.
I know about
I think you got to get
Cracker
over
Barrel
the
it is,
ridge.
But yeah, I know on the Cracker Barrel side it is, but I think they can tie into a gravity line at Canada Road. But as far as the force main capacity, that's not a problem. They'll have to upgrade the pump station.
All right. Questions, comments? City? All right, with these.
Ian,
Yes, sir.
what is the detriment to the city to versus a 6-year extension versus a 3? I know you recommend a 3-year extension, but what would be the issue with the 6-year?
We would just have to carry that development on the books for that extra time, and should other projects make themselves available that are on the list right now, we would, depending on their location, we'd be looking at possibility of some capacity issues. Again, it's very site specific, but we don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're having to make that determination once a submission is given to us. We want to have a policy decision and start looking at, what are the viable projects, what are not, and then what are we going to do even to increase our capacity in the future. Because we do have potential for, I've seen estimates going from, we're currently at about 11,000, 13,000 population, going all the way up to 40,000. So there's potential for growth there. It's just going to be a matter of getting everything in line.
Mr. Steen, if I may interrupt, I think you've made a couple of assumptions in your comments that I don't think you're privy to them because of your newness to the commission. And so, forgive me, but I think I need to fill in the spaces here. The state governs every municipality's sewer system, both in terms of its finances and its capacities. And when we approve subdivisions or developments, then those approvals become recorded against our system capacity, whether they're actually built out or not, whether we're actually receiving rate-paying customers or not. And so the metrics go to Nashville. Nashville says, okay, you're approaching your limit on the capacity of your existing system. What Mr. Steen is saying, we want a policy decision to expand our sewer system, the utilities and everything else, based on projections of the city's abilities to fund those, as opposed to being demanded to do so by the state because of prior commitments that are unfulfilled. This is one application, but there are many that were approved beginning in that period 2007 to 2009 when everybody thought we had a boom, but we had a bust, actually. And so many of them have been extended, but not developed. Yet and you yourself have approved some recent developments that what we want are developments that are under construction, because they become then demand on the system and rate paying. And so we want this matching, and the extension for 6 years kind of stretches the imagination, frankly. This was from 2007 to 6 years hence, 2018, or 2022, possibly. So it just, that's a big step. And so that's really the issue before us, is just not just the application. I think the application has always been great. Everybody loves it. It's the point is, how much endurance is there, and what's the overall picture of the sewer plant? Now, the sewer study that's been completed, going to the BOSC, they're the ones who govern this. We're not empowered to make their decisions about the sewer capacity. They get their chop. And so I think it's just important for us to be aware that that's a key issue for any future extension of any applicant, because we are getting real development with real construction as we speak, layered on top of this other bubble that is not producing. So it's problematic. It's life. We're all caught in that. So that's the point that he's making. I just want to make
Thank
sure
you, sir.
that
Yeah,
there's a little
well said.
background,
Yes,
because
good.
you weren't here. Is
Well
that,
said. Well
forgive me, did I misstate it?
You're great.
Okay, well, no, I've never been accused of that. Thank you. Any other comments?
Nothing more.
All right, the applicant.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I'm John Dugas with Bell's Enterprises. Bob Sweeney, who is with SR Consulting, and myself appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on the Lake Forest project and also discuss our request today. As was mentioned a couple of times, Lake Forest, which was approved several years ago, is a very complex, multifaceted project. It was Lakeland's first, what you might call sustainable, mixed-use, comprehensive community development plan. And project, we've actually started on the project, so what I want to do, just if I could, to use this particular slide, this illustrates, probably better than anything else, the complexity of Lake Forest. The area on the west, which is along Canada Road, is primarily retail, mixed-use development. The area along the east is primarily residential development. We've actually started construction in this area here, which we call Phase 1A. Also, the lakes have been installed, the sewer relocated, and a lot of this area, all the underground work has been done here. So we have done a considerable amount of work in the project. As the chairman mentioned, we ran into an economic situation a few years ago, which we're all aware of, unfortunately, so that the project did not continue to completion. One of the key things that we consider in terms of our request today, and we appreciate your patience with this request, is when we deal with primarily the retail commercial area, we're looking at fairly long-term marketing and negotiating periods with tenants, especially anchor tenants. Bell's, of course, has been in this business many, many years, over 70 years. And we find, especially in today's environment, that you may spend even 5 years working with a potential tenant before you get to the point where that tenant is able to open. So they ask you, all right, do you have enough time for us to invest our time and money to actually make this particular project work? So it's a little bit different, obviously, from even an industrial type of user and certainly from a residential user. So for that reason, that was one of the reasons we have been, we have made the request for the 6 years extension, because we just believe, we want to be realistic about what we're dealing with here. And we think that, especially the quality and the type of tenant we would be trying to attract here would take a good deal of time, especially your anchor tenants. The other thing that we find, that's of course in the retail area, in the residential area, and this was mentioned earlier, the adjoining property owner approached us several months ago because he felt that in order for him to accomplish what he wants to do in his property and in Lakeland, he needed to acquire our property to create what he calls the Lake. So after several months, we negotiated, and we do have a contract with them. The first phase of our residential is currently slated to be completed next April. Obviously, we cannot do that while we have this contract, and he is working on his development. So that's a practical part of this. We're not totally sure where the housing market is going. I don't think anybody knows specifically. And we all know that housing markets have their ups and downs, not just in our area, but all over the country. So we want to have enough time and flexibility to make sure that the proper timing and the proper product is delivered to this market. Also in this area, some of you may remember who were involved in this initially, we have some of the first mixed-use type of development where you have shops on the ground floor and you have people living or working above it. That's a very complex and difficult thing to achieve almost anywhere. So that's going to require some extra time and planning as well. So I guess for those basic reasons, we feel that we need that timing and flexibility to make this happen. And just as an overview, Bell's has 3 different properties in Lakeland. So we have a pretty good, we like Lakeland. We feel well invested in Lakeland. And we've already spent several $1 million on our properties here. And we feel like we need to be sure that all of the timing and the planning is done very systematically. And Bell's is a strategic investor. I think of all of our properties all over the country, we try to do very strategic investing, and that, of course, includes Lakeland. So we would just, we appreciate your patience in this. We know it's going to take some time, but we believe that we can end up with really an excellent product here. If Mr. Netnell is not able, we like his plan, but let me say this, so we hope he accomplishes it. If by chance he's not able to, we need to be sure that we're not caught in a situation down the road where our entitlements are not properly preserved. So that's really one of the main reasons we're coming in terms of this timing now and requesting this extension. So I'm sure that there may be questions, but I just wanted to give you kind of an update, an overview. If you need any more details in terms of the engineering and design, like in the first phase or any of that, Bob has other slides that we can show in the presentation. But this is about a 12-phase project. And it's broken down to all different types of components, so it's got a lot of parts, moving parts, I think as mentioned, and complexities. But without getting too deep here, unless you want to go deeper, this is kind of our overview and our rationale for the request. We do appreciate, once again, your patience and glad to answer any questions or hear your comments.
Is it fair to say that your company has had 10 years to attract these tenants and that sort of thing? Didn't you start this in 06?
We actually got the approval in 06. We started the residential component, and I can't give you the exact date. Remember the exact date of 08?
It's not important. It's not important, but I'm thinking in round numbers that Bell's has had about 10 years to develop plans and negotiate with tenants and that sort of thing? Is that fair-
We've actually,
Is that fair to say?
yes, sir, we've actually, for example, this plan is what was adopted originally in PDP. We've actually refined this as we've talked to different potential tenants. We actually refined this area along Canada Road, and we have a more up-to-date plan for this potential retail area here. So this hasn't just stood still during this time. We really have looked at different options, different ways to approach it. We've updated our thinking on it. We've talked to different kinds of users for the project. So it hasn't just stood still. Plus, like I said, we have actually started that first phase.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Madam Recorder, thank you, Mr. Dugan.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Madam Recorder, would you call the first person who signed?
David Davidson.
Please come forward and please. What's your name and address?
I'm David Davidson, I live at 3400 Monroe Road, Lakeland, Mississippi. The reason I'm here is we got a letter from Lakeland saying with adjoining property owners to the development. And first of all, I'm not against development. I want to make it clear because Lakeland's in a growth stage and we need development. We own the property along Monroe Road in front of this entire development. Myself and my sister and brother got a neighbor, Ed Justice, here with me. He owns a house he just built there. And one concern we've got is how's Monroe Road as a major thoroughfare for those residential areas east of the development. How is Monroe Road going to be impacted with the additional traffic there? Are they going to wind up widening Monroe? Right now it's an existing two-lane road. It's been like it for years. Are we going to wind up widening Monroe Road to accommodate the traffic coming out of the development? Because it's got to have a place to go. That's one question. And one problem I'm having, and I talked with John years ago, wrote a letter to them and the Lakeland city planner, city engineer. We're having a problem with stormwater runoff coming from the entire development, which they've done a good job putting infrastructure in the sewage, water lines, and gas lines. But we've got rainwater or stormwater running off the development, crossing over Monroe Road onto our property, and it's flooding the property as we speak. We've had a lot of rain these past few weeks, or months rather. And we've got a forest there. We've got trees on the property. It's beginning to impact the trees. It's going to wind up killing hardwood species. They can't stand flooded areas. So. And water's pooling at a certain location on Monroe Road between the pump station where we live, and it's going to cause a major accident. It's coming off of one of those service drives. So we need, I guess what I'm asking is we need to get Mr. Bell's and his associates to get over there and see if we can't open up the drainage system that's already built there. Some of it's blocked. Some of the culverts, they go down 30 feet deep from the surface of the soil. I guess kids have gotten over there to remove the manhole covers. And if somebody got over there during the dark and stumbled into one of them, it would kill a child over there. And people are going onto the property, even though they've got posted signs. People on four-wheelers, that's a major problem. So we're just, I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to do something about the stormwater runoff over there. There's silk fences up, but they've been down in places and they're not doing any good. I think we need to get some more silk fences up, you know, help silk from running into the problem. Because of the stormwater runoff, our side of Monroe Road, the ditch is filled in with silt. And I guess I'm asking some relief from Lakeland, if they can come out there and dig out the ditches. At one time, I had a 30-inch culvert in my driveways, and it's completely filled in where it's just as much water running through. And it floods every time we get a hard rain. So if we could get Lakeland out there and dig out the ditches on our side of Monroe Road, that would help eliminate a lot of the problem, force the water into the stream in front of pump station number 3.
Well, the city engineer is the person to speak with, and she's taking notes. I presume that you will follow, Mr.
Yes,
Nix?
yes, we'll go out and look at it, and we'll try to come up with some sort of a plan for it.
We appreciate it, because it's a major problem.
Well, that's really the point here, is that we're not going to reckon about development based on problems. I mean, there are problems everywhere. We gotta fix the problem. That's the deal. And the city's obliged, the applicant's obliged to do everything we're committed to do. And so, follow-up will occur, and certainly the city manager will be briefed, and it's his responsibility.
Okay.
Appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
I appreciate it, and basically, that's it.
All right, thank you very much.
sir.
Then recorder?
Jerry Russian.
Yes, sir. My concern is the same.
Your name and address,
Oh,
please?
excuse me. Jerry Russian. I live at 3717, 3701, and 3729. That's our family properties in there. And we actually are behind the area that Ms. Davidson was talking about. But we've had, ever since the mold's been there, we've had a problem with water drainage. And it's the same concern with us, except ours is not silting in, it's going into the lake, the Lakeland lake. And it's cut such a trench down through there now that you could set my Suburban in it and cover it up and I know it's there. But that's my concern. I don't believe they need the 6-year extension on development because they've had a lot of time to work with this project up to this point. Now, I know it's not something they just thought about yesterday and decided to get 6 more years extension to do it. So I don't agree with the 6 years. And the water drainage is a problem.
All right, very good, Mayor.
That's all.
Thank you. Any others, Madam Recorder?
Tom Hathaway.
First, I want to say I'm Tom Hathaway, and my wife and I live at 10305 Monroe, which is just down the road from Jerry, and around the corner from the Davidsons. We all know each other, and we've always had problems. My wife and I only lived there 8 years, but we've seen the problems up close, as most people out there live there. And I will tell you that I too am not against the mall. I'm not against that at all. I am concerned about what comes with malls. But if the city of Lakeland acts, in my opinion, favorably, they can overcome those. Now, it may not play too well in Bell's plan of things, but that area in there, as we heard the other night over at the golf course, I heard 2 or 3 figures bounced around, 400 to 600, somewhere in there, of living units. Some owned, most rented. And assuming that the average occupancy is 2 people in each of those units, which I think is pretty reasonable. And each one of those, they seem to be aiming supposedly at the young people and stuff, villagers and whatnot. There'd be 2 cars for 2 people.
So you're talking 800 cars. And if you extrapolate that out, it comes down to there's just, if people don't go to the grocery store, they just go to work and come home, there's going to be 2,400 vehicles on average traveling through there. And I'm curious, has anyone done a traffic count, officially done a traffic count, put hoses out to determine traffic, and then looked at studies showing what happens when a mall and all these apartments and stuff come in, and two people, the interstate and the traffic is going to be added going down, cutting through, going south to Houston Levee and on down to Germantown and on down to Mississippi. Is it proper for me to ask the engineer if they have traffic counts on hand that we can see?
We do have, traffic counts submitted for Lake Forest. They would have had to submit, but as far as the new, mall, they haven't gotten to that point yet, but they will be required, every development's required to submit.
Well, and I might add that it will be a differential because the traffic study was done for the original mall at that time in history. And so they're going to be building off of that to where we are today. So
I used to work for the government. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't work for them anymore. I'm retired. But I would hope that City of Lakeland would not take the developer's word without verifying it with official studies that city or state controlling, because there's kind of conflict of interest when the developer's doing it. But I am concerned, just like Mr. Davidson talked about Monroe Road. Monroe Road, many of you probably remember what the old road from Germantown up to 64 was like 20 years ago. Narrow two-lane and ditches, no curbs, no shoulders, no nothing. Well, Monroe Road's about 3 times worse than that. And it has, unlike the old Germantown Road, it has these curves, some on hills that come up and down, over on Cobb, which Cobb and Monroe all kind of get it, most of you know. Any number of accidents have happened over there on Vernon's property. About 2 years ago, there was a girl almost killed, came over on those hills in the curve and ran off the road, no shoulder. It just sucked her into the ditch, into a tree head on, and she was critically injured. It's just a miracle that she's alive today. And if it hadn't been for a fireman having a daughter at the horse farm over there at Trinity Farms, and him being right there on the scene, was able to go in and get her out of the car, she would have died. And in the short time we lived there, there's probably been 15 or 20 serious accidents on the road. Fortunately, I don't think there's been any deaths, but some are reported and some are not. Some people come get their buddies with four-wheel drive trucks and pull them out. But even regardless, Monroe Road is in horrible shape. There's 2 culverts that are going to have to be replaced. We've talked to the city of Lakeland, I don't know how many times, and they come out there and shovel a little gravel in the hole and put a barricade over it. And what's happening is water is washing in and going around the existing culverts or bridges or whatever cement structures under there. And because of the increased traffic that we've seen in the last 8 years, it's a constant thing. 2 years ago, they fixed one on Cobb, and now you come across that and your car jumps up in the air because it's all sunk in. And it's never a permanent fix. It's just shovel rock in. And there you go. You know, we have extremely sharp curves on that road. And I assume you all have driven sometime in your life, but it is phenomenal. The curve right outside, and I wish this map. Is there a map that shows the whole area, or does it just not show where Monroe Road meets curves there where Cherry lives? Do we have a map that's any bigger than this, or is that just it?
this is pertaining to this application, so we don't have.
Okay, all right. Well, when you come over here, where the new mall or whatever someday will be there, there's curbs there, and, yeah, thank you. Have you been on those for years? What, did push button turn? This button, okay. And I'll show you probably here, but, right in, if this is the new mall, and this is Monroe Road, right here is an extremely double sharp curve. There's two curves. One's on a hillside. The first one after the mall is fairly level, goes down to a dip, curves real sharp, and then a further dip, and then it goes around, hits another curve about 100 feet, and then goes up a hill, and then it goes over a series of hills. And the bridge I'm talking about would be down right about in here is one bridge, and then if you went on down Monroe, there's another extremely sharp curve. I mean, a real sharp curve. In fact, vehicles can't get around the curve without running off through a guy's yard. Memphis policemen know that. They have to cut through part of his yard, a small part. It'd be the right of way, I assume, but, or the easement. But it's hard for people to navigate that curve. And then when you go on down, if you're going out Monroe, you have to make yet another curve, a three-way intersection, no stop signs, no nothing. And it goes on out this way. But all of this road, it is horrible. And I don't see any way any of this housing could be done, and maybe even the mall, without at some point realigning Monroe and straightening out all those sharp curves. And I don't think that can be done short of these roads that come out on Monroe, here. Probably one of those is going to have to, and I would suspect it'll be this one right here, will have to coincide and line up where Monroe goes on east at the intersection of Cobb Dead's End to Monroe. But, and then, of course, Monroe on over to Chambers Chapel, it has its own problems too. But those roads over there are as country a road as what I grew up in North Missouri, and the county only had 4,000 people population for the whole county. I mean, these are 1940 roads, really.
Actually 1920.
Huh?
Actually 1920.
Okay, so they're old roads.
Yes.
Somebody's gonna have to pay for that.
And we've got your point.
Okay.
And so, and the city engineer and the city planner are responsible for
That's fine.
major road plans. And I mean, I'm not saying your points are exactly well taken. It's that these are all issues that bear on the development that's in question, but they're consequential. In other words, that the city's obligations rise with the developmental rise of the city.
I understand that, but you know, most cities require developers to kick in and pay for that kind of improvement.
And you will see that in this case as
I'm
well.
glad. Now,
But they're only responsible for their side of the road. You know, so we're going to look at the entirety.
okay. The other concern I have, and I'll be shorter on this, the road deal is really important out there. The other concern I have is the historical history, I guess I said two words there the same, but the history of what follows malls. And I was thinking while sitting back there, and you know, we've had Hickory Ridge come and go. We've had Oak Court down there really hurting. I had a long talk with the guy at Wolf Chase the other day, the general manager that they've got over there now, nice fellow. He's worried about them too. They've got vacancies. He's trying hard to fill them, and the corporate headquarters sent him in here to keep that from happening. But what you get into though, when you add rental property close to a mall, it's devastating. And we've seen that city after city, and as a law enforcement officer of the government, I can tell you that malls and rental property are a nightmare. The police, and they get worse and worse. Eventually, the malls shut down, just like Royal Springs and all of it. And I used to enjoy shopping out at the old outlet mall. Of course, and I hate seeing them close the Pottery Barn. My wife really hated it. But everything has its time. That, you know, Lakeland doesn't even have a police department. And I don't know when, at some point, they're going to have a police department to police all this stuff. And then that means everybody else got, their taxes going to go up for a bunch of things that we've gotten by for years without. But the crime that will most likely, not tomorrow, not next year, not in 3 years, 5, 10 years, you're going to see a big uptick in crime. And you're going to see a big uptick from all the traffic coming down Canada Road. We used to live in the interstate. And I think there's a lot wrong and a lot of expense and headaches coming down the road with this. Single family in there that's non-rental, that's single family homes, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 square foot, I wouldn't have any problem with that. But of course, you can't put 400 in there. So, anyway, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Points taken. Mr. Manford.
You know, the malls you mentioned, those are not pedestrian malls. I believe that the mall that's being proposed here is a pedestrian mall. So I think a lot of the issues that you have with the closed-in malls like the Raleigh Springs, the Wolf Chase, is that they've done studies on this and they've shown that families will drop their kids off and let the mall babysit them. You know, there's security there, that sort of thing. But with pedestrian malls, you're not enclosed, you're out. And so the crime rate in those malls like Carriage Cross in Collierville is significantly less than, and that's, I think, more of the image what they're proposing here.
We're a little bit out of order. This commission passes on whether or not applicants have submitted development plans that are in accordance with our land development regulations. We do not administer crime prevention or control. We don't administer any of the consequences of development. That's the Board of Commissioners and sort of thing. So we're going to pass tonight, one way or the other, on the merits of this development regarding the land development regulations in City of Lakeland.
I'll just in closing just say that I hope all zoning boards look at the big picture, and if they can, in their zoning, can avoid problems down the road, they're doing a great service for the community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a question regarding the Lake Forest plan and the subsequent purchase of the other developer and how that's going to develop.
Evidently, you're not alone. Evidently, you're not alone.
Yeah. So the question is, with Lake Forest and the specific requirements for approval that were done, to Mr. To Phil's point, 10 years ago, what other requirements are there going to be passed on to another developer? Traffic was a good point. What about traffic? I'm assuming that a traffic study was done at the point that this project was approved. Obviously, are we passing that on to the next developer? Or will the next developer be required to submit his requirements for his development?
If I understand your question correctly, yes, the studies associated with this development are dated. The development that's been proposed, the Lake District, they will generate studies based on today's data.
So that was the point, the reason I asked that question, somewhat I knew the answer to, but I just wanted everyone to hear that what we're talking about is basically land uses. And there's still gonna be detailed plans that have to be worked out for sewer, traffic, other improvements that are gonna be as this project goes along.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Well, I have a question as far as the people on the railroad.
All right.
Can I-
Commissioner Blunt, you have the floor.
Yeah, I would appreciate it to if the city engineer could maybe the next meeting give us a report back as far as what she finds on remote Monroe Road, and kind of let us know what's happened and how how city is going to handle that road. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner?
I'm not clear exactly on Sal's, the answer to Sal's question, or maybe I didn't understand the question, but this Lake Forest has been in the process for 10 years now. The traffic study that was originally done and all the other studies were done about 10 years ago, give or take, right? Will those be updated before, will those kinds of studies be updated, be required to be updated before this project could go ahead, assuming that Bells decides to actually do it, build it someday? Or will all those things that were approved 10 years ago or thereabouts still be valid 3 years from now?
I'm not sure if anything has been updated because I wasn't here.
But do the land use regulations require that is the question, I guess.
Well, but this is a PD. This was developed under the old regulations, old law.
So in other words, the answer is no.
Everything is grandfathered in, everything.
All the
That's-
studies.
That's right.
Okay.
And so it's important to recognize that. If Glod Corporation comes in with a new development and this, they're in kind of a straddle position. Glod has submitted several applications, and they have met with approval, but they are different from the one today. And so I think part of what they're developing will be grandfathered, but I would expect, and it would be reasonable to be expected, that this property was not in any prior submission. And so if it is, then this part of their submission would need to be inclusive of new information about this property.
Is that the way it is?
The planning commission is making a recommendation to the board of commissioners regarding this extension.
Right.
For this plan.
For this plan, yes, sir. I may be wrong, but it would certainly be within your authority to make a recommendation to update studies or whatever, and the board of commissioners could take that under advisement. I don't think that's been done before. I think it's, we're basically dealing with an approved plan. Keep in mind that this plan is still good until April of next year. They're just trying to grant that extension, so again, they can have a little bit of a buffer there. I don't think we've done that in the past. Again, in the form of a recommendation,
Well,
the board of commissioners could take it under advisement, but they don't necessarily have to follow that
and,
recommendation.
and bear in mind, this, we're deciding based on this application, about this impact on the community. How is the impact different today than it was 10 years ago? The only thing that's different is the externality. What is the traffic today on Canada Road versus then? What is the traffic today versus 10 years ago on Monroe Road? And
But you're right in terms of.
testimony notwithstanding, 10 years ago, the mall traffic was dramatically more than what it is today. It's non-existent today from that. So I think that we would be unwise and it would be hard to defend that frankly, that there would be a requirement for updated studies based on the impact of this development unless there's substantial change in the nature of the development from now to then. Past. It is what it is. There are no changes. So if we're talking about the increment it's bringing to the community. So that's my 2 cents. I mean, you open the door, but I'm trying to slam it. I think this is not purview, and you have no basis for asking for new information unless there's a change, a substantial change in the application. Mr. Dudas has raised his hand.
Mr. Chairman, maybe just to clarify something, because I know it's a few years that has gone by. When this plan was developed, working with the city at that time, the system of access and roads was planned in mind with Canada, for example, being wide, which is now wide, expecting more traffic. This road here, which is a 4-lane road, was a requirement that the city put in so that, whoops, we lost it. Well, anyway, that road was put in the plan to really funnel the traffic within the residential area and commercial area to that road, to Canada, to a traffic center. So all that was considered when the original plan was developed, just to clarify that.
Yes, sir.
I just want to ask one question of the board. When Belts first tried to get this, had this approval, was it approved with the apartments that they've got listed now in their plans?
The property has no apartments. The Galad property has apartments. And that is not being considered tonight.
Well, in the Goliath property,
It's a different application. It could include this property, and if it does, then that's what I'm talking about when I say the Galad application needs to consider, the impact needs to be expanded to consider this property. We've got 2 things happening.
well, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
This property here has no rental property.
Yes,
Well,
it
at
does.
least,
That we have, remember, there are
it's been 10 years.
above the retail, there could be, there is residential proposed or office above the retail, which could be rental. And there are manor homes, which is what a lot of them do in this area, which could be rental as well.
And is that substantially different than the original application?
No, it's the same thing.
That's my point.
That is the original application.
It's,
So
the plan has not changed, this plan has not changed since 2007.
well then I was led to believe something different at the other meeting that they had. I
I can't account for that. But this application is basically unchanged from 2006 to today. And they're simply asking for an extension of that plan development because it has a termination clause, and this termination clause is about to expire next year.
Yeah, I understand.
So, one more question, and we need to move on. Yes, sir.
This is for clarification, because I don't quite understand. I understand there's 2 properties or 2 issues at one point or other are going to be resolved. One, I take it, is the Bell's property where they put in the curbs and down south on Monroe, and the other is the actual mall development. Is that right?
That's correct.
When the one down where the curbs have been put in, what were, and Mr. Gentleman from Bell's probably have to tell us, what were the number of rental units or number of living units approved for at that time? 400 to 600, or was it 150 or 75? I mean, because that makes a substantial difference on traffic counts
Yeah, but there's no substantial difference between the plan submitted in 2006 and this plan today.
Maybe I can give a real quick answer to that. Bob Sweeney, that's our consultant. There is a condition on this plan right now that once we get to 100 new homes, we have to make a connection to Canada Road, and all of that traffic has to go out to Canada Road. So that's to protect Monroe. We did that on purpose.
I understand what you're saying, but I was led to believe part of the property that you're talking about today had apartments involved in it.
Not on the south, up on the north side.
You're talking about, instead of in plan A, B, and C, you're talking about in the D area?
This area right up here, those could be rental units. All of this area down here is all single family.
Single-family residences?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, okay, I'm clarified.
Could you highlight that area that didn't work? I couldn't see where he was pointing.
To the north,
Next to the mall,
That's a
right next to the mall.
Okay.
This is the mall building.
And which was the other one you were highlighting?
This was the single family right there.
and I might add that this plan was, as mentioned earlier, was forward-thinking. It anticipated our land development regulations we have today, even though they weren't obliged to meet them. Because if you'll see every other development in the future coming through requesting, it will be mixed use in these commercial areas, where there probably will be rentals, and there probably will be joint family structures, because that's the intent of the land development regulations. So enough, we've got enough information for the commission to make a decision. Any final questions? Would someone offer a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the Lake Forest extension to 6 years.
Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there an alternative motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the extension of Lake Forest PD for 3 years as recommended by the staff.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Madam Recorder, would you call the roll, please?
Christopher Racy,
Yes.
Mr. Pilcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Plummer,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderbeer,
No.
Chairman Barber,
Yes, and passes 4-4, 1 against. Next item is a discussion item, so we don't need it read into the record regarding the sign ordinance. Steve, you have the floor. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Next item for discussion is sign ordinance. As you may recall, I've been here since July. The sign ordinance was pending. I did a review of that sign ordinance, came to the conclusion that much of the concerns that I originally had were addressed in the ordinance after I became familiar with it, and asked that the DOC consider that. There was considerable discussion at both the work sessions and the regular session when taking the sign ordinance under advisement. A lot of that discussion had to do with very specific items. As that discussion evolved, the ordinance was tweaked and for clarification as well as to accommodate some of the ideas that were being discussed. In the final analysis, the DOC felt that there was still a lack of consensus on the sign ordinance, and they wanted to send that ordinance back to the planning commission with a recommendation that the BOC and the MPC come together in a joint session and just brainstorm in terms of what they have in mind for a new sign ordinance. Be it taking what we have on the table, or excuse me, it's not on the table, before you, in terms of the last edits, and again, seeking better clarification or minor revisions, all the way to gamut to, writing the new ordinance, if that's what it takes. My memo to you was rather short because I was a bit perplexed in terms of where we want to go from here. And I was just going to take my direction from this commission, and we'll go from there.
Well, I guess I'll start. I hope you took good notes. I hope there were specifics that you said because I don't believe that more minds make a better product. We've gone through it once. I think that if the BOC wants something specific, then they should stipulate what those things are. And you should draft language to think would pass muster with this commission. I mean, we can have joint sessions, but I don't see how that improves the likelihood of either speedy or somehow enhanced consensus, unless there's some belief that we either don't understand or haven't heard or whatever the specific inputs. I mean,
My notes were ongoing to highlight a few of the issues. We currently allow for open signs. There was concern that we allow for open signs. We wanted to maybe eliminate that. So that was one of the concerns. There was concerns about temporary signs, and somebody mentioned flag or feather flag signs. And from my perspective, a temporary sign is a temporary sign, and if we control the size, the duration, and the manner of signs, then we can address, temporary signs of many nature. What was not brought up was like LED signs, but that has been voiced by the retail community. Other things had to do with some points of clarification in terms of how long a temporary sign permit could be issued. And I tried to tweak that, given my understanding, again, of this body's intent without being a part of that process, but through conversations with Jim Atkinson, my predecessor, and now city manager. But again, in the final analysis, it was decided to try to come together and maybe let their voices be known, since they are a new body. This is a fairly new or different commission, and where we go from here.
go ahead, please.
Yeah, let me jump in
help,
for just a couple of things.
help us understand this.
Okay, yeah, there weren't a lot of objections. There were two of the main things that we discussed were neon signs, the neon open signs, and the mayor was against the neon signs, and I think we need them. I mean, it's small. I mean, you need to have a sign that says I'm open. I mean, but we had one, it was the mayor, he objected to it. And then the other thing was the wooden for lease signs. I brought up, or I'd like to see something that aesthetically, I just don't like the wooden signs. I mean, there are better ways to advertise for lease signs. I think that I talked to Tom, if you want to elaborate on that, as far as having the box that you would drop off the leaflets. But I would just want to do away with the wooden signs.
Well, I guess my view is that there should be an opinion expressed by the members of the BOC, either individually or collectively, about what are all the issues and what is the preferred outcome, so that city staff can draft the language. Until we have language to review, all we're doing is discussing concepts.
And I think that was the purpose of a joint meeting, was to air these issues so that you would hear those concerns as well as staff, and it would not necessarily come through my filter or anybody else's, but you would directly hear that from them.
To what end?
Again, just to communicate, their concerns.
Are we the, man,
Yes, sir.
are we the final,
Especially if it'll help.
do we have the final say on the sign ordinance? The sign?
No, sir.
Well, we make a recommendation to the BOC.
So they're trying to give it back to us to create language and,
Well, it sounds like that.
yeah.
But that's my difficulty is city staff created the language that we amended and approved for recommendation. And BOC should do the same. And if that means it needs to come back to this committee for reconsideration, so be it.
But we'd like to see something in writing, wouldn't we?
Well, without that, we're just, we're talking to the air. I mean, we do need something in writing saying this is, it says this and it means this, and, because one of the general issues is that once you start tracking in on specific kinds of signs, specific messaging, you exclude everything else. Suddenly, that's okay, or that's not okay, because you haven't spoken to it. And so, really, there's kind of more security in having language that isn't so specific, because it allows for specific interpretation by city staff. And so, that's the intention behind it.
Right. The BOC did hear from the public as well, and there were some concerns about increasing the height and the size of signs.
Perfectly acceptable. I mean, that's the purpose of the meeting. And so if, all I'm getting at is that if there's a joint meeting, I would like it to be reviewing a redraft done by city staff based on the inputs of the BOC. So that we're not talking about thoughts and opinions, but we're talking about all of our views about specific language.
I can draft that.
And that's what, I'm not opposed to it, but I would like to see something for us all to look at that tries to capture the direction you receive. And then our opinions will matter.
That's right.
Well, those were the two main things that we discussed, and that's how I got referred back to this board.
Because I'm certainly open to any improved vision or wisdom about what should be in there. It's just simply more efficient to have redrafted language that tries to capture the intent of what you heard. That's why I was hoping you took copious and thorough notes. Because if
Again, I didn't know the intent or the actions of this commission. If you were simply going to say, well, the amendments that we drafted, are the amendments we're going to stick with, and we're sending it back to BOC, or just what?
we can do that, but I don't think it's productive. I mean, it just becomes ping pong then. I'm looking for, and I, on the other hand, I won't accept proposed dispose, where we have to kind of imagine what it is that they want to see. I want to see language that you professionals develop, which we can both say, this isn't what I want, is what I want, and can I agree with that? That's fine.
I will draft that language, and then once complete, if the BOC wants to proceed with a joint meeting, then we'll take it from there.
And it will be, it won't supersede a meeting and a vote of this body on its own. But if it helps to garner approval at the BOC level, that's fine. Madam Recorder?
I just want to remind you, you have two people sign.
Yes, I want to make sure he's worn out first. Any other questions, Mr. Skeen? You said your piece?
Yes, sir.
All right. Madam Recorder, would you call the members of the public who signed up?
Mr. Bill Gordon.
I'm DOC, and I think you may not have appreciated what occurred with this body fully, but at the last meeting that you had reviewing the sign ordinance, you were never presented after that meeting with the final draft that was supposed to go to the DOC. And because of that oversight, we ended up with a document that changed, added, and missing material that was substantial in nature. Some examples, the addition of feather flags to temporary flags was something that added. Changes in definitions relating to building permits, campaign signs, marquees, on-premise signs, pennants. Deletion of most street definitions and swinging signs along with 3 or 4 others. There were changes in how ground sign area is computed. There was changes in I-40 signage along Canada Road. There were no monument requirements for those signs, but I think this commission came away with the impression that there were monument signs on Canada Road and they were not. They could be pole signs based upon the way that the document was written and presented to the DOC. There was no incentives that could have been addressed to remove non-conforming signs that are currently in the city. No provisions for outlot development on shopping centers. For instance, new Starbucks is going in. There's nothing in our current ordinance or the one that you sent to the DOC to be approved that addresses outlots in a shopping center as to what signage they're allowed. The document that you were presented with and that you saw last and saw for the whole period of presentation did not have an entire section on shopping center signs. That was not in there. And that had been approved years before, but was never addressed by this commission before it was sent to the DOC. It was missing ordinance on vending machines, which also had been approved previously. There's conflicts on signs on regards to corner locations. You have in part of the city that they can put a sign on each frontage road. But when you came to the interstate, signage on Canada Road, that wasn't addressed. So the assumption would be that you could have 20-foot signs with 100 square feet of signage. Waffle House could have 2, plus a 35-foot sign with another 100 square feet on the interstate. And I don't think that was the intent of this commission. So, all these issues could have been addressed if it had been brought back to you as a final draft, but it never was. In addition to that.
That's certainly the point, certainly has merit.
Well, I think this is a serious problem with the current ordinance that was provided to the DOC for approval. And I don't think they had time to review those miscues or missing items. But I think the other part of what I want to address is the effect on the community. That 2 parts of this ordinance that was presented to the DOC, and I made my point to them, is the I-40 corridor, or the I-40 interchange, and Highway 64 signage going to these new higher, larger signs. Communities like Franklin, Tennessee, Brentwood, Tennessee, Germantown, Gardner, Arlington, all have our ordinance of 32 square feet and 6 feet in height. And both Brentwood and Franklin have interstates running through them, and they do not allow signage any larger than the rest of the city. Speed limits have been brought up as an issue. Well, we need larger signs because everything's traveling so fast, but that's not the case. All of Highway 64 through our commercial area where the grocery store is 45 miles per hour now, and it'll probably get lower as traffic increases, as will the rest of Highway 64. And if you stand on our side of the road where that shop is and look across the Kroger's, all the signs over there are like ours. It's 32 square feet, 6 feet high, except the shopping center sign, which you have the authority to approve at higher heights for development like that. And the shopping center sign right there is the same height as the one across the street. So if we increase the signage along that road, you're putting our businesses at a disadvantage by making them put up larger signs if the next guy goes in and puts up larger signs. So what you've done there is detrimental to all of our businesses at Interstate 40 and on Highway 64. The density to commercial versus the sign sizes. On that interchange, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses lined up on 100-foot lots. And you're going to put up a 20-foot high sign on each lot. I mean, that was never brought up in the discussions that I saw. There was no data was presented to this commission to see what the impact was for doing something of the size. The sign may look great when you're just looking at a piece of paper, but you see it on a wall that's higher than the ceiling. or is at least as high as the ceiling, the impact on this community is a quality of life issue. When we talk about walking trails and bike paths and neighborhoods with all of these green spaces like we're doing on the Lake District, then all of a sudden you've got to drive through this mess to get to it. And the impact on our quality of life, because we have to go to shop, if we shop there, is something that we find very negative in nature, affects not only us, but the people who may tend to move here in the future, and the people who will shop here. Because we shop where it's attractive to shop, where we feel safe to shop. And when we go through the first rail like that with those signs, it has a very negative impact on us. In addition, those higher signs will impact Stonebridge, Woodland Park, Fairway Meadows, and Windward Slopes. And we'll now be able to see those signs out of their windows, in their bedrooms, in their living rooms, in their kitchens. And I don't think any of you would want to see that out of your windows, but that's what you're doing to all them. I think that's another reason the industry wants to set this back and have a conference about it. And I don't know if any of you lived here long enough to remember the old fireworks sign that was at the exit to Canada Road. And it was probably, I would guess, very close to the sign area to what you recommended that you approve. That was yellow with fireworks really crossing it red. Now I can see coming to Canada Road and getting off the interstate and seeing that all over again when I go to this new Lake Forest and Lake District. It's supposed to be an upgrade to our community. It's supposed to be quality development. And we've got that standing in the face every time we get off that exit. I'm sorry, but I just can't see it. And current development influences new development. So if they see that we're allowing this, and everybody's going to look at this and come down the road, but if we hold our ground, like all these other communities have, then we'll get good developments. We'll get the Lake Districts coming in here, because that's the kind of quality development that they see, and then they want to be here too. And that helps us tax-wise, because now people want to shop here. They'll come to quality destinations like that.
Bill, I want to stop you right, if I may, at this point. You've made the point that BOC has rejected something that was what we approved plus matters that we had not seen. And I'm sure we're going to hear all of these points again. So if you can kind of keep your comments brief, so we've got a point that can be taken for going forward, because we will cover, I assure you know very well, that you will be at all the meetings and that you will address all of the specific concerns once again.
Well, I know you have a new member, which none of this came about at that time. And also had some questions about this, which I think you should ask or should be answered before this comes further forward. You know, where did these recommendations come from that came to the planning commission? Why were these signs such sizes suggested? Who brought that forward?
Central.
I'd like to know that. And then,
and only city staff can answer that.
I'm sorry?
Only city staff can answer that.
Well, it would be a good question to ask. And then the other thing is, as a survey of current existing businesses and residents been done as to their feelings about changing from a Germantown appearance to a Memphis appearance in regards to the signs. And I don't think that survey has ever been done. We've done surveys for a lot of stuff in this town, but nobody's thought that forward. And I never saw a businessman show up at any of those meetings saying they wanted the larger signs. So it's a mystery to me where the whole thing came from.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Obviously, Mr. Skin, that's going to, I want everything that was beyond the scope of whatever we saw when we approved it to be shown as new material. Every last word. All right. Madam Recorder, anyone else?
Mr. Scotty Showers? Or Shows?
It's Showers, you got it right. My name is Scotty Showers, and my residence is 9091 Pembroke Ellis Drive, Baltimore. I'm the church administrator at Lakeland First Baptist Church, 4500 Canada Road. We'd like the commission to consider off-premise signs for nonprofits and for the city organizations here, such as Lakeland, whether that be at the elementary school or so that's a request we'd like y'all to consider.
All right.
Said here we as a church want to have some signage, of course, appropriate locations, correct signs. We want you to all consider that.
Thank
Our
you.
church and help, I think, the city, with the city organizations.
All right, we'll add it to the list.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. All right. Steve, do you have any final comments about the topic? Because I would strongly recommend that we cut to the chase. Okay? If you draft language that you know is going to be acceptable to both bodies, that covers all these concerns, so that we can get from the shortest path between where we are, where we need to be is approved sign rate. That means nothing assumed, nothing left out, nothing added later, nothing, I want, as they say, overused today, some transparency to the process. Okay? That kind of capture what you thought you heard?
Absolutely.
All right? Very good. Any items of announcement or commencement or whatever it meant? Nothing. Have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
We are adjourned.